what the actual number is, but it's felt very, very barren at times. So it seems like even the base level maps are going to be a little more interesting now, which is great.
Now, towers are a thing that's very important for players to run often, but we only had one of them. We wanted to add more variety here as soon as possible, so we've added 4 more tower maps.
Oh my god, yes, thank you so much. There's more than just the one jungle tower where you're going from this room to room, and half the time you can't see what you're walking into in the room, which early on meant actually getting one shot on occasion. Nowadays, that's not so much a problem, but there's actually more variety in the towers now, 4 additional towers. And you can see one of them right here.
We wanted to add more variety here as soon as possible, so we've added 4 more tower maps. Alpine Ridge, Sinking Spire, Bluff, and Mesa. We've also redone the existing Lost Towers map to make playing there less boring.
Oh my god, this is so huge. Okay, so not only are we getting 4 additional towers, which is going to bring more variety, but you can see here they've changed the existing towers, and they said to make it less boring, but I think the first thing that immediately stands out to me is the fact that we're no longer walking into these covered rooms where we can't see the enemy count, the density, the placement, whatever the heck's going on. As you push in the late game, it's not as much of an issue because you're pretty much just blowing everything up instantly in there anyways. But early on, when you first start progressing, you would just sometimes walk into one-shots. Like, you would walk into a bunch of enemies throwing down a bunch of chaos damage on the ground, and it popped the second you walked in the room and could see what was even happening. Looks like they've addressed that by just getting rid of those roofs, and now we can actually see the enemies as we're approaching them. So this is great. Really, really good stuff.
We're now also spawning more maps with bosses. The rate was intended to be 1 in 4 maps, but in reality the rate was much lower due to some maps being unable to spawn bosses.
Oh my god. Yes, this is so great. It's like W after W here. Listen, I'm not one to say, like, I don't think it needs to be the case that bosses need to be on every map. I mean, I wouldn't hate it, honestly. Definitely, I liked going to boss maps, especially because bosses seem to always drop a lot of stuff. Like, you'd get multiple tier 15 maps, you'd usually get some decently high value currencies, and you'd get a few higher tier level of actual item drops. And now looking at this, I mean, this is way more abundant than what I am used to typically seeing when I'm running maps. Like, yes, he's right.
We're also adding a new type of tablet that allows you to add bosses to your maps with its own mod pool.
Oh, yes, dude, we're fucking getting boss tablets now. Because right now we've had tablets for everything but bosses, basically. Like, you'd have the breach one, you'd have the ritual one, you'd have the delirium one, and then you would have a radiation, which bumps the level of all the enemies in a map by 1. Now there's actually going to be boss tablets. So if you want to just be bossing, now you can actually focus on that by putting the precursor tablets into your towers to get more bosses around you, in addition to the fact that there are now just going to be a lot more bosses. About 1 in every 4 maps is what they're aiming for with these new adjustments that they're making. So across the board, if you like fighting bosses while you're mapping, you're going to be fighting a whole heck of a lot more bosses while you're mapping now with these updates.
Strongboxes also needed some love. They now spawn monsters faster, have a less annoying fog effect, and have also received changes to the timings and effects of the mods on them.
I think this is a good change. I think even with monsters spawning faster, like, I guess I'll just have to see how it actually plays out when we're in the game, but they still just don't even feel like, some of these league mechanics just don't feel like worth the time unless you're specifically going after like a particular currency that comes from those mechanics. Pretty much anything but breach I'm not really doing. Like, breaching and bossing, those are the only things I'm really focusing on. And you know, there's reasons to do these things because you get currencies that fuel other mechanics in the game, right? I guess we'll just see how it plays out when we're actually in game, right? But I still feel like strong boxes might be something that I skip, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they've really, really amped it up.
Now, let's talk about visibility of effects. Many maps had too much clutter, preventing effects on the ground from rendering, causing you to be unable to see and dodge them. We both changed the level of clutter on some maps, and changed some effects to make sure that they are always visible.
So what's interesting here is it sounds like what they're doing is they're like turning the slider for the amount of things on the ground, like the grasses and the flowers and shrubbery and all that stuff. It seems like they're just like by default ramping that down so that there's less things in the way of the ground effects. They also mentioned the fact that they're going to be ramping up the visual clarity of some of those ground effects, and a lot of this really just also leads into the whole one-shot thing where you're gutting one shot on a regular basis, and sometimes you have no clue what happened because of that lack of clarity due to the amount of stuff in the map itself, but then also the effect of the mechanic that ends up getting you one shot.
In addition, Elemental explosion effects have had visibility improved. Stick around for longer before they explode, and disappear without exploding if a rare monster dies.
So the elemental explosions that trigger off of enemies, it seems like you're gonna have more time to respond to them basically, and they should no longer blow up after the enemy dies, which did happen on occasion.
Now we've also increased the zoom level on the Atlas.
Oh, that's so huge, dude. The Atlas map was just way too zoomed in, even as far back as you could get. And after you've been playing for a while and you've been mapping for a while, like I would be clicking and dragging the map trying to get to the other side of it or to check parts of it, because I don't remember like where everything is, especially as I move in different directions. And it would take forever to get across the map. Now that that zoom out is really, really big. I mean, just like look at that. Look at how much further out that is. And it's still perfectly fine. Like you can still make out